Dawn of War 4. Gotta admit, it's got a ring to it. And with the recent release of Dawn of War 1 Definitive Edition, we all probably suspected that there was something cooking somewhere. As no matter virtually how popular a thing is, companies don't tend to put in quite that much effort unless they've got a follow-up waiting in the wings. And that has now been revealed as Dawn of War 4. The most likely follow-up as well, although there are some pretty massive changes here, with the biggest and likely to be the most controversial one being the replacement of Relic with a new games development team, which we will touch upon over the course of this video, of course, though I will also hasten to add immediately, a lot of people are lamenting the lack of Relic in this game, but let's face it, they didn't exactly knock the ball out of the park with Dawn of War 3, now did they? Even Company of Heroes 3, which I maintain has gotten a lot better, is still not exactly quite up to the pedigree of Relic. So I think that a bit of fresh blood may not be a bad thing. But let's first and foremost have a look at the trailer here, shall we? So, we are joined, as always, by the Blood Ravens, and we're introduced to some of our beginning factions here. So we've got the Necrons, obviously, along with the Blood Ravens, the Adeptus Mechanicus, and Jonah Orion from the previous games right there as well. Or at least I am about 98% certain that's him, surrounded by Primaris Marines, of course. He himself looks like he's probably undergone the downgrade as well, and look, I fucking hate the Primaris. To me, they have become a symbol of everything that is wrong, not so much with Warhammer 40k, but with Games Workshop and their handling of the 40k IP. But this is guaranteeably a demand from GW's side going, hey, listen, we hate our setting almost as much as we hate our fans, and we are working very hard to replace the Firstborn, the actual Space Marines, with these new boring tactical tards. So if you want the IP, you're putting them in the game, so I'm not going to blame the developers for that. And we also have Orks as well. I think I saw little Gretchen there smushed underfoot. Now, another critique that comes off right away is the color style, as this is eerily reminiscent of the Dawn of War 3 trailer, and I feel like, and God, I get you, I goddamn get you, okay? Dawn of War 3 was an abomination, considering the pedigree of the studio involved, considering that it missed on everything: story, animation, music, sounds, presentation, everything, balance, multiplayer. It was a terrible game, one of the worst ever, again taking into consideration the expectations surrounding it, but I'm hoping it's just a color choice, as this kind of goes out throughout the trailer, with it feeling a bit too similar to 3, which is not a good thing. And again, we have the Ork, rounding out our first 4 factions of the game, with of course the Space Marines, the Necrons, the Adeptus Mechanicus, which is an intriguing choice. Not what I would have made myself, but it's not the worst, and the Orks. And we will be returning to Cronus. Also, we've got Scout Sergeant Cyril here being dead, not dead. It's a little bit unclear from how they're cutting it. They show him being buried here, then they show him back, and they show him as a part of the gameplay trailer, so I'm not entirely sure, but stabbings, explosions, as the tomb world is clearly fully awakening now and receiving another intervention. And the overall style choice I think was a very bad idea, because it feels a lot like Dawn of War 3. So, I believe, here we go, here's some gameplay for us. Some interesting observations here right off the bat. Keep an eye on this right here, where you see a dreadnought fighting a tomb spider, I believe. Keep a little eye on that one. You notice that? You see that bit right there? Do you see how... So they talked about expanded sync kills, but if you keep a close eye on that fight, you will see that's not a sync kill, and neither side is dying, they're not low health or anything, they're actually locking in combat. We are getting actual combat animations now, which I very much so approve of. I wonder how they're going to do the health balance. As you're looking at it right now, it looks like the Dreadnought begins at full health, then it receives several hits during the fight, and its health is decreasing, which means that you will probably be taking damage whilst locked into these melee fights. Alternatively, look at the health of the Tomb Spider as well. It too is falling, and I can't... Well, it's getting shot at by some bolters back there, but I doubt that's doing that much damage. So I feel like what might be happening here isn't necessarily that the Dreadnought is taking damage from the shooting, it might be taking a consistent amount of damage from being in melee combat. So the melee combat isn't a hit, it's you're now locked in combat, you will take a running amount of damage whilst you're locked in combat. Theoretical, but that is pretty damn cool, and is going to make the battles look very nice and lively, so I'm looking forward to that. You will also see the Space Marines near the sandbags right here. They are clearly using cover, so we have cover mechanics back again. That's very good. Their movements are a little bit stiff. You can see like that they just like swish like there. I tried to snap my fingers, I failed. They look a little mechanic, but again, this is a year away, so I'm not going to complain too much over the animations. We've also got drop pods, of course, coming in, and we have a lot of units. Just on screen right here, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, with a further 2 coming down and a third one there. So lots of units. Nice. We got to look at the Adeptus Mechanicus here, where again, also, you see another example of the melee lock-in mechanics right there. You see the boys and... what are those? Honestly, I have a hard time telling. But you see them, they charge in, they lock, and then they get pushed back in a canned animation. So there's definitely some locked-in combat animations there, which I'm very, very, very happy to see. Then we get to a base shot of the Orks, which again, this really does feel very Dawn of War 3, but that... Like, I mean, the Dawn of War 3 wasn't necessarily an ugly game, although the slightly cartoonish graphics was not great. I didn't love it, but it's not something to be panicking over, even though, again, I definitely do see where people are coming from. You also got the war meter over there in the top left corner, so we might be seeing a return of the only good mechanic in Dawn of War 3, which was the Warg banners playing rock music and riling up the boys to go charging at the enemy. That was cool, I like that, so seeing a return of that, not a bad idea. We also at the beginning of the clip see what appears to be a upgraded resource node, that big orange thing there. I think, judging by the minimap, that is an upgraded resource node. So you will have resource nodes, and you will be able to build on them, presumably, as it has a hit point bar right there. And then you build your buildings on the map. Now, let me talk about the map itself for a second, because the map does look really, really fucking tiny, and it does look like it is filled with corridors. So you can see you've got a top lane there, you've got a middle lane there that leads into a middle area, which isn't accessible directly, as you can see what is presumably a wall there. So you kind of got to fight through these two approaches, and then you've got another path right there. So you've got 3 very clear lines. Now, That too is not necessarily a bad thing, as many strategy games have this. The problem with Dawn of War 3 was that its lanes were way too gosh darn obvious, and basically forced you down these very narrow lanes that were utterly dominated by heavy war machines later game, making the vast majority of infantry units fucking worthless. Well, let's continue on a little bit. And then we have another clip moment where you see some of the combat animations again, including a little bit of blood and gore. A little bit, not a whole lot, but you can see that the Dreadnought grabs and squishes the Ork like an overripe grapefruit there at the end. So there's a little, and you can also see what appears to be a kind of jibbed Ork corpse there to near its feet. So there's a little bit of blood and gore, but it does feel somewhat, you know, scaled down from 1 or 2. And then we have another clip here with a nice big battle. And this one, we'll have a look at this one closer in the screenshots in a moment, but this is a pretty big fight right here. And that's probably the thing that I am most excited about, the apparent scale of the engagements. This really does look like a pretty solid sized battle right here. Lots of Orks, lots of Space Marines, lots of shooting, even though, again, I will point out, you'll see the presumably las cannons, maybe, or multi-melters in the middle there. They don't really have much of a firing animation beyond their guns lighting up. So I'm a little worried about the animation quality for a lot of this, but again, way early release. Then we simply have the wishlist coming 2026. So let's have a look here at some screenshots. And this is the big thing right here, the developer, which we'll have a quick at in just a second. But first, I wanted to have a look at this one right here, right? So, this screenshot, you can see a lot of units down here. I think there's like 12 plus units. That's a lot of troops. And look up here in the top left, 95 out of 300. That, I presume, is the pop cap, meaning that you could have triple this number of units in a game. That's pretty cool. If that is true, if this is a multiplayer scenario, and it looks like it judging by the minimap, as you can see also requisition and power points of course, that is rather intriguing. You'll also notice unit veterancy. So you can see a gold veterancy bar there, you can see bronze, you can see silver. So retaining your units will be important. I don't think I've seen a retreat button yet. Let's see, I think there was a picture earlier showing... okay, here we go. So yeah, there it is. We've got a retreat button right there. At least that looks a lot like a retreat button. So I'm presuming we're going to see retreat to base as per usual. We also have some special abilities there. But the mass of units might make you think that the units themselves are going to be worthless and you're just going to spam, shove them down the corridors and see what happens, right? Almost Supreme Commander style. But the addition of veterancy makes that a lot different. So I'm kind of hoping and that we'll see these big battles with lots of units where the micro kind of comes in as managing to pull out your units, rally them, reinforce them, and send them back in, leading to kind of like flowing back and forth confrontations and constant action. It feels like perhaps a decent mix between the fairly heavy micro of Dawn of War 2 and the mass numbers of Dawn of War 1, as the direct micro here is of course going to be in heroes, tanks, and also the special abilities, as they've mentioned down here. What was it? Endless ways to wage war. Enjoy an endless replayable collection of game modes, including your favorite 1v1, 2v2, and 3v3, where you're waging war. Use the painter tool, stamp your own unique personality on your fighting force. So there is the painting tool. No 4v4, which is a little bit disappointing. And oh, where was it? Where was it? They mentioned down here somewhere that you could unique collection of command Advanced unit building and gameplay mechanics. Okay, so you can build some sort of a deck, it sounds like, and it looks like it as well, judging by the screenshots, where you've got a line of special abilities, for example at the bottom here. So there will be decks, probably, where you'll select things like hero units, as we also see, there we go, an Imperial Knight right there, which worries me a bit because the Knights kind of broke Dawn of War 3. It became a game where pretty much every game ended up going to the ultra late game, and the Knights was so powerful that if you didn't have one, you just get cream pie, and there was nothing you could do about it. And the end game therefore became a fight between massed armor formations, with infantry being just wiped out in seconds upon hitting the field, and the only units that were worth a damn were heavy weapons troops because they could engage enemy armor, and anything else, anything short of a tank, was just obliterated the moment it got anywhere. So, pinch nervous, but the larger unit formations might be a good way of counteracting that, so I like the scale. I really like the scale. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, shall we? Developer King Art, publisher Deep Silver. So, King Art Games, you may remember, they are the creators of Iron Harvest, a game that was blatantly taking a lot of inspirations from Company of Heroes, a game I was very excited for and didn't quite live up to expectations. It was about 80% there, but that last 20% really hobbled it, and left what could have been an incredibly interesting and unique game feeling somewhat mediocre. It hasn't done poorly, mind you, like these are respectable numbers for a strategy game. It's not awful, it's been out for quite a few years, of course, so only 11,000 reviews is not a smash success by any stretch of the imagination, but these are fairly respectable numbers. They also have a history, of course, of open campaigns, which is nice, although I will say the linear campaign was pretty bad. It was not very good. It didn't feel good. It wasn't fun to play, but they have learned quite a bit from Iron Harvest, I would imagine, after it. And if it was 80% there, if they can just find a way to close that final distance, I'm very optimistic. I do not think King Art Games is a bad choice for this at all. They have a history with attempting to create games like this in the past. They are like Relic's games. They understand the charm, and they are likely to be willing and able to attempt to capture it again. If there is any studio out there other than Relic that would probably do a good job of this, it is King's Arts Studio. So I'm very happy with the pick. If we can't have Relic, and bear you in mind their dodgy track record as well, this is the best we can hope for, I think. The publisher is a little bit more worrying. So, Iron Harvest was in part crippled by its need to go to consoles, which is never a very good idea for a strategy game, and part of the reason that was probably a little bit due to publishing and needing to get it out to a wider market, etc. And Deep Silver is a publisher with a very mixed reputation. On the one hand, they released Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which I believe was an excellent game, although it is very, very controversial. But they've also released Saints Row, and we've heard quite a lot about how it might very well have been the publisher who pushed a lot of the woke shit into Saints Row and absolutely ruined it, and in turn also destroyed Volition, which was one of my favorite development teams back in the day of Free Space, etc. And all in all, Deep Silver has a very, very mixed release history here, where they've got great games to terrible games to mediocre games. So, if I am worried about anything, it's Deep Silver. Deep Silver worries me. King Arts, I'm confident they'll do a good job, or at the very least try their absolute damnedest to do a good job. I am willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I am willing to go to bat for them. Deep Silver? Not so much. Not so much. Not so much at all. I don't like them. And of course, that is a branch of Embracer Group, which also does not have a very good reputation these days. So that's the real elephant. That is the real elephant in the room here. But again, all in all, I was on the fence. I'm beginning to lean in the direction of positive right now. We've got cover. We've got like synchronized close quarters combat, which looks great. We've got sync kills. We've got unit veterancy. We have a much larger scale of battle, and we've got customizable decks with units and heroes, etc. All of this sounds very good to me. There are a lot of pitfalls and a lot of comparisons to be made with Dawn of War 3, but I feel as if the development team simply plays Dawn of War 3 and goes, right, these are the mistakes, and then avoids them like the plague. It's not like the mistakes are nebulous, you know? It's not like they're difficult to find or granular. They are sweeping massive gameplay decisions that just don't work. So, and like, actual cover. No bubble cover here, no dumbass shields or anything. The maps, they do look a bit tiny. So, if those are the positives, what are the negatives? Deep Silver, worrying. The map looks small to me. It looks really small to me. It looks fucking tiny, honestly. Looks like you could walk from one base to the other in under a minute, which is not great. It looks a little corridory, which I also don't love, but when you look at the map overall, you know, it's not quite that bad. And you got to remember as well, corridors are a part of multiplayer map designs. You can see that in Dawn of War 1, you can see it in Dawn of War 2. The trick is to not make it feel like a corridor, which Dawn of War 3 failed with miserably. Animations, I'm a little worried about animations. They look very stiff, which was a problem in Iron Harvest. I don't like the number of melee units. So you've got what I presume to be Vanguard veterans here, basically, with close quarters weaponry, and you also got some Space Marines with chainswords and bolt pistols. It feels a little meta-esque. It's like, oh, well, you know, we gotta have the Space Marines have a melee unit too, so just, you know, do some dudes with chainswords and bolt pistols, you know? Feels a bit weird, but this could also very well, mind you, be a part of the customization system. This is pure speculation, mind you, but imagine, if you will, a system where you begin with a Space Marine. That's all it is. It's just a Space Marine, and then you go, okay, I'm going to give you a bolter. That's Space Marine Variation 1. Then you bring up another Space Marine. I'm going to give you a bolt pistol and a chain sword. That's Variation 2. Space Marine 3. I'm going to give you a heavy bolter. That's Variation 3. And then you've got X amount of points to spend to customize your army at large, including your armor, your heroes, etc. Could be interesting. Again, pure speculation and wishful thinking there, but could be pretty cool. Could be pretty cool. So, for the moment, and this might be my blue-eyed naivete as usual, but more I look at it, the more hopeful I become. I think the initial paint job and reminiscence nature of Dawn of War 3, including the logo and the trailer, kind of gave me immediately like a Pavlovian response of going, I've seen this before. It sucked. But on closer inspection, I mean, you even got what I presume to be morale bars here. I hope they're morale bars anyways. I hope they're not shield bars, mind you. As you can see, the small blue bars over the units' heads. I'm hoping those are morale bars, and I'm hoping they're not armor bars, because the armor bars in Dawn of War 3 was not a great addition in my opinion, and seeing the return of morale would be cool, although I would honestly, I'd kind of prefer it if the Space Marines had something almost armor bar-ish, and then everybody else have a morale bar. Like Orks, give the Orks a morale bar, absolutely. And then give the Adeptus Mechanicus maybe like a new sphere connection bar. When that's broken, it kind of serves like the same as a morale broken. And again, give the Space Marines armor, and give the Necrons like a regeneration bar. So long as it's full, they will regenerate to the full of their abilities and will bring back a lot of their dudes. If it's broken, however, their regeneration becomes a lot slower. They become unable to regenerate their characters in the field, etc. There are cool ways you could balance this out and make it flavorful and faction unique, so I'm going to go with a final conclusion of cautious and guarded optimism. That's going to be my final conclusion on this. Lots of promising things. I like the developer. I think it's the best choice besides Relic, and again, Relic has had a spotty record. Worried by the publisher, worried by the aesthetic choices and the kind of overall style direction, which doesn't necessarily mean anything, but also could, and I'm not the biggest fan of the Adeptus Mechanicus. I would have preferred Chaos, personally, or Tyranids, or fuck, almost anything else, but it is what it is. So, you let me know what you think in the comments section down below, and until next time, I have been Arch. Thank you very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Well then, have a good day.